What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel. My name is Paul and I make videos about Japanese society, life, and culture from the viewpoint of a long-term foreign resident. I'm closing out on 20 years, and today I'm going to answer a question that I've heard from quite a number of people, which is, how has the tourist boom in Japan affected my life here as a resident? So I'm going to answer that both from my professional life standpoint and my public life standpoint, or my resident life standpoint, I should say. And to begin with, I'm going to say that as a professional teacher who teaches a course that one of the major themes is sustainable tourism, this has been an absolute boom for me because I'm able to find tons of articles, tons of news clips, all these things about the huge tourist boom to Japan, and I can use them in my classroom, and that's been absolutely great. So I have no complaints there, but how is it personally, as someone who lives here and is suddenly surrounded by that many more foreign tourists, or maybe being mistaken for a tourist more often, etc.? To be honest, it's going to vary person to person depending on where you live. I have friends who live in Kamakura, which is a huge tourist town, and they talk about how they just avoid certain places in the town because it's too busy, or they avoid certain places at certain times of the day. For example, Kamakura is very much a kind of a day trip town, so at night it really empties out, and so there's plenty of opportunities for locals to enjoy restaurants and things without all of the crowds. But during the day it can be pretty darn busy. I have a friend who lives close to Shibuya, and he has to go through Shibuya Station all the time to go to work. And he says it's kind of like going through a theme park because there's just so many tourists standing in dumb places and blocking things and wheeling suitcases around, and for him it's pretty annoying. But to be honest, in my case, where I am in Yokohama, there are not a lot of tourists. Foreign tourists aren't visiting my neighborhood, so if I visit my local shops or restaurants in my area, no one assumes I'm a tourist necessarily. Now, that changes, however, when I come here, which is where I used to live. This is Fuji Oida. Normally, you'd see Mount Fuji right up there, which it's covered in clouds at the moment. But when I'm here, there are considerably more tourists walking about, taking photos. And as a result, I lived here from 2002 to 2005, and then for a short time again in 2008 to 2009. And the truth there is, it's hard to feel like it's my hometown anymore, which is a little bit unfortunate. I used to go into shops and restaurants and no one assumed I was a tourist. They generally actually assumed that I lived here and would just talk to me in Japanese first, and that's all changed. Now I go into a shop, the natural assumption, because there's so many tourists, is that I'm one as well, and I don't blame them for that at all. Obviously that makes a lot of sense, but yeah, it's a lot of kind of broken English, or just an English menu handed to me with nothing said at all, and unfortunately that ends up feeling a little bit less polite, like when you have people whose English isn't very good. And so I had, for example, a situation in an udon restaurant a few months ago where I walked in and the staff was like, "You here," instead of greeting in polite Japanese and like telling you to take a seat somewhere, using the imperative, you sit here. Didn't feel the greatest, but I get it. I mean, what can you actually do about that? Nothing. And the net positive has been so fantastic because where I'm walking right now through the Nishiura neighborhood is actually seeing a huge revival. It's become a place for tourists to come take photos of Fuji, and as a result there's tons of new cafes, art studios, shops that have opened up, and it's really helping to revive this area, which is an excellent thing. If you asked me, would I trade being spoken to in Japanese in what I consider my hometown for a revival to my hometown, economically, socially, with lots of cool places to explore and shop and eat, I will make that trade happily. I'm very happy to see my hometown booming in a way that it wasn't in the past. Like, this area was dead 10 years ago. Heck, it was probably 6 years ago, it was still pretty dead. Before Corona, it's only recently that social media has really made this place kind of blow up in a way. So yeah, I'm very happy to make that trade. I have no issues with that. And so on the net, I would say the tourist boom is a positive, at least in my life and in my experience. And so I have no regrets in that respect. If I lived in certain neighborhoods of Kyoto or Kamakura or Tokyo, I might have a different opinion about all of this. But again, I've said again and again on this channel that the over-tourism is kind of a myth, because it's often spoken about like it's happening everywhere and every place in Japan is over-tourized. But is that a word? Anyway, over-tourized, and that's just not true. Certain places get a little more foot traffic than it can handle, and it's just about people trying to find new places to spread out and new places to check out, and this is an example of that. Before, like a few years ago, you'd come here to the Chureito Pagoda and you would go to Lake Kawaguchiko, you'd climb Mount Fuji, and this area was basically, not much going on at all. But that's changed, and the tourist flows have changed, and that's going to continue to happen everywhere in Japan. I predict that the same will probably happen in Kyoto, that people will get tired of the same spots on social media and be trying to search for their own new place to go viral. So I think that in the end, the tourist boom on the net is good for Japan. There's plenty of things that can be done to mitigate the crowds at the same places all the time, and that's what I would encourage local governments and the national government to think about doing. So how about you? Are you a current resident in Japan and your area is experiencing over-tourism? Let us know in the comments below. Are you a tourist coming to Japan or in Japan now and you're looking for some suggestions or ideas on how to avoid the over-tourized spots? Yes, I used that word again. Ask in the comments, and I myself or some other residents or people who have knowledge about Japan will probably answer your question, make some suggestions. Of course, my first suggestion would be to come to Fuji Oida City, check out this Nishiura area and enjoy the shops and cafes and everything that's here. And maybe you'll run into me if you come to this town, because I'm here quite a bit. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.